Okay, so I may begin right on time. Hello, everyone. You're all very welcome to our open evening here in Tangent on our postgraduate certificate in climate entrepreneurship. Delighted to see so many of you online to join us. This was the first course of its kind in Ireland, and we're delighted to say that it's been funded for the next 3 years. So this is the second ever intake. And today I'm joined by a delightful cast of characters who are here to hopefully help you on your journey to completing your application. And also a number of graduates are here to share their experiences and their unique trajectory in learning all about climate entrepreneurship. So with us today, we have Professor Quentin Crowley, who is the course director and the director of Trinity College's Centre for the Environment. You're very welcome, Quentin. We are also joined by Eleanor Saunders, and Eleanor Saunders is the lead contributor on the postgrad in climate entrepreneurship and also an innovation and education expert. So welcome, Eleanor. We are also joined by someone who some of you may already know, and that is Jane Flanagan, our student recruitment officer here at Tangent, who will be online and available in the background to answer any of your questions on how to apply, fees, eligibility, that sort of thing. So please do submit any questions you may have through the chat. And then finally, we have 3 graduates of the first ever intake of this programme. Shanna May Breen, a creative and also founder of Tree Zero. We have Maeve Stone, the artivist in residence at Project Arts Centre, and Katrina McCarthy, the programme director at Edible Landscape. So that's everything. Any questions at all, please do submit them through the chat. And I hope you enjoy the session.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hazel.
You're welcome.
So hi, everybody. You're very welcome. This is the 3rd information session on this PG Cert in climate entrepreneurship. And as Hazel just mentioned, it's really about getting to know some of the previous graduates, to hear about their experiences on the course, and maybe answer your questions about how you can use the course in the future, or questions about the application process. So I'm joined here by Eleanor, and Eleanor, as Hazel mentioned, is a co-facilitator and a key contributor to the course. So we have some questions for our panelists. So first of all, let me say, great to see you all. It's been a while. Very welcome here, and thank you for joining us. So I have a few questions for all of you in terms of your relative backgrounds and experience. And Eleanor and I are going to go back and forth and ask these questions between us. So maybe, Shanna, if I can start with you, and you can tell us a little bit about your background and what kind of drove you to make your application to the course.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name's Shanna May Breen, and I am a creative. My background is in theatre and theatre making. I'm currently living in Dublin, but originally from Offaly. And around 4.5 years ago, I became quite, I would say, worrisome in terms of climate issues. And being an artist, I try to chew it up in the only way that I know how. And I started developing projects that looked at climate to kind of make that intelligible for me. And since then, I've developed, I would say, about 6 climate projects in the last 4.5 years. Then during the pandemic, a lot of work dried up in the creative industry, and I understood that I sort of wanted to and needed to pivot my sort of creative thinking and see where else I could work and translate that way of thinking. And the climate entrepreneurship pinged up very quickly on my screen, and I applied. And through the course, I developed a business called Tree Zero, a product. And since the course's completion, I've been developing that product alongside Enterprise Ireland's New Frontiers program, and with sort of top sustainable European designers, Marama. So I'm not only a climate artist, I'm now a climate entrepreneur, and sort of tag teaming between the two.
Amazing and inspirational story, Shannon. Thanks for sharing that.
Fantastic. Lovely to hear that you saw an opportunity to pivot kind of your creative thinking there. You know, you're seeing the challenge of the pandemic coming in and the changing landscape and thinking, right, how do I make something out of that and go somewhere else? So can we build on that a little bit? I'm going to jump to Maeve. Can you tell us where you were at? How were things looking for you, and what brought you to this course?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am similar background to Shannon. My background is in film and theatre. I'm a director and writer, but I would have begun sort of, I guess, a journey in activism maybe 2014, 2015 during the refugee crisis. And I guess it became really apparent that there was a deep connection between the refugee crisis and the climate crisis. So my work started to focus on ideas of inclusion, but also I was learning more and more about the climate crisis at the time. And I think most people that are here tonight probably feel the same way, that the more you know, the harder it is to look away. So started to embed those themes of kind of solastalgia, climate grief, kind of coming to terms with it into my own work at a creative level, making shows and films. And I think the reason I applied in some ways mirrors Shanna as well, in that I think our entire sector stopped. And for any of you who know any artists personally, despite what you might have as an assumption, we actually are workaholics a lot of the time. And so it was a real pace change for everybody. And I think what it did for me was it created a space for reflection and kind of grand perspective, which the constant kind of struggle for funding and production doesn't really allow for. And it made me start thinking about the production cycles and the systems that I would, you know, be using on a daily basis as an artist and a member of the creative community. And what was really interesting to me in the entrepreneurship course was, I guess, some of the ideas and ideologies, I suppose, that it offered an introduction to. So system thinking was really kind of a watershed moment for me in terms of how I think about the climate crisis. And it helped me to understand my position within my own community. And I guess since the course, the work that I do is kind of spread across a lot of different projects. And but I would say it's been most useful in my position on the steering committee for the National Campaign for the Arts. So I've gone in to that position with a much broader understanding of what the climate crisis means across all society, but kind of crucially how it intersects with the creative community. And then also on a short film that I will be directing in October, which all going well and funding pending, but we're hoping to collaborate with Native Events, who another graduate, Megan Best, is the founder of. And it would make our film one of the only productions that I can find that would be operating close to carbon neutrality, because her organization offers clean energy, and that hasn't been attempted much that I can find. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's kind of using the networks and the information and embedding it, I suppose, in how I work.
Brilliant. Thanks, Maeve. I think to pick up on a few key points that you mentioned there about systems thinking and how this can really change mindsets. This is really transformative, and it's at the core of this course, and how we can visualize complexity and how we can work with uncertainty. And, you know, climate change, it's a really complex thing, and there are lots of uncertainties there. So it's great to hear how you've been utilizing your new skills and systems thinking in a myriad of ways. That's super. And something else you touched on, which is very relevant to Katrina, is that, you know, this is really it's cross-cutting different sectors. So obviously, both yourself, Maeve, and Shanna come from the creative and cultural and expressive side. But really, you know, climate change is something that cuts across all sectors, and every business and every enterprise, whether it's profit, not for profit, social enterprise, everything has a climate impact.
A systemic issue.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So on that, Katrina, I wonder, could you tell us a little bit about your background and your perspective on climate entrepreneurship and what brought you to this in the first place?
Yeah, thank you, Quentin. Thanks for having me as well. For the last 10 years, I've been teaching sustainable horticulture and sustainable agriculture in the west of Ireland. And about 10 years ago, I came across a piece of research that was, I suppose at the time, it was revelatory to me that there is a link between climate change and the food that we eat. And that it was the one sector that we could not just help stop the effects of climate change, but we could reverse them through our food choices. And I suppose at the time, nobody wanted to hear about climate change back in 2012, 13, 14. But I suppose as time moved on, we set up the Edible Landscape Project here as a way of engaging people. So people would plant edibles and learn about the climate and learn about food security. So it was kind of a trick in a way, but people loved it. And it's grown from then. We've between my work teaching sustainable horticulture, and it's really interesting you come back to systems thinking because it was such a core part of our course, but it's such a core part of life that I think we have all kind of lost the knowledge, and we lost the respect for the connections between things. And when you don't respect the connections between things, then you lose your perspective. So me wanting to have melon with my Christmas dinner or grapes with my Christmas dinner, living in Mayo, really doesn't work. And when you stop and think about it, it makes so much sense. So as a result of doing the course in climate entrepreneurship, I saw it. We live in the west of Ireland. Number one, I was so delighted to be able to do a postgraduate in Trinity during lockdown from Mayo. That was first of all, that was a huge bonus for me. Second of all, we were finding difficulty communicating our message. So I was wondering, is it just how Edible Landscape is presenting the message, but then learning that there is a whole issue with messaging in communications with climate change. And then actually, as a result of the course, we learned so much in terms of knowing who your customer is. So I was finally able to pare down. So by the time we finished the course, we put together a climate education program, which we rolled out about 2 months after I finished the course, because we realized that children need to learn systems thinking. So now we have them basically putting together a food forest, planting a food forest, and learning how all the different plants are related to each other, how there is a system there, and everything helps and benefits each other. So it's been, for me, it was wonderful to do the course. Excuse me. It was, it was absolutely fantastic. And really, it's that central learning about systems thinking that I think can change. If we can get that message across to as many people as possible, it changes everything.
Yeah, it's so important, Katrina, and it's lovely to hear your reflection there that it needs to come to children as well, and just generally out to broader and more diverse audiences as well, that this isn't just unique here, but yeah, if you want to tackle a problem this big, really these grand challenges that we're facing, you have to see the interconnections between them all. And I love your examples of food there as well, because it's so tangible for people when you talk about food as well, and also an area where you can make huge changes. But yeah, in terms of not being able to have grapes with your Christmas dinner, or it's not the best thing to have, we need to apply a bit of that thinking in other sectors as well, where maybe it's a little bit less tangible than food, but equally things are not connecting up as well as they could be. So yeah, I really thank you for bringing in that sort of thinking on it too. Shanna, can I jump back to you, and can I ask you to talk a little bit about the other people that you met on the program? So part of this program is that it is interactive. You are working with others on it. Could you describe sort of the profile? What were the other type of participants who you got to meet, and have you continued to use that network?
Yeah, I think the connectivity of the course is probably its main number one factor for me that I'd rate. I met a number of people through the course that I'm still in touch with. Specifically, a lot of sort of the funding applications that I'm making at the moment, be it for the business or in arts, sort of the cross contextualization of thinking is super valuable. So from a funding point of view, it's like who can I connect up with who I generally wouldn't have before. But B, the result of that is that you're making connections with people from all different backgrounds. And I think the sort of intercontextualization of thinking is such a significant factor about how we move forward with climate. I was part of working with two groups specifically in projects, and I'm still in touch with those two groups, Maeve being in one. And we're always in touch with one another. But yeah, the webbing of thinking and being a creative and meeting someone from an energy background or a food background and thinking my point of view of something, and then that meeting someone else's point of view about that same thing creates this new point of view. It's mine and theirs. And that sort of colliding and gliding of thinking was what the course was all about.
Yeah, fantastic. And the course is growing as well, so it's doubling in size. So that opportunity that you had there is getting bigger as well. And like thinking back to Katerina saying, it's amazing to be able to come from Mayo. It's amazing for you, absolutely, but it's amazing for everyone else there as well to be able to make those longer distance connections too. So something really lovely there coming in the online. And of course, as we're going forward now, we're blended with that online too. So there's still a lot of opportunity to bring that wider range in. Fantastic. Quentin.
I've noticed a few messages popping up in the chat, and there's one in particular I'll mention because it touches on this point about blended versus online versus in-person delivery. And obviously the first time around for this course, we were really in lockdown. It was very much, pandemic. So pretty much everything was online, including the course. So this time around, we're really pleased to be able to offer some dedicated in-person sessions. And we've designed this in a way that hopefully people can still make it regardless of where they're living. So if you're in Mayo or if you're in Sligo or Donegal, we hope that you still submit your application. So there will be some touch points which will be in person, and they'll be on Saturdays. And we have 7 of these sessions through the whole 18-week program. So it's not a huge amount, but we do see value in bringing people together physically in the same space so that we can really maximize this kind of networking channel that you were mentioning. And then other sessions will be either online or hybrid. So hopefully that works for everybody, and we're looking forward to seeing the applications as they come in, and this diversity, not just in different backgrounds, but also in interests and geographies. It's really important for us. Maeve, maybe if I can jump to a different kind of question for you. I wonder, with your experience of the course and what's happened since, can you think of a central piece of advice you'd give to a budding climate entrepreneur?
Oh, you're on mute, Maeve.
I am on mute. Apologies.
There we go.
I said something very intelligent just before I muted.
It's groundbreaking, but it's lost to the ether now.
A central piece of advice, I would say not to limit your curiosity, because I think one of the things, with a course like this where it is transdisciplinary and everybody's coming from a completely different background, the value in jumping into subjects and research that are totally new is exponential. And I think really embracing the curiosity of meeting new people with expertise in areas that are quite different to maybe your own background, but B, the subject matter that the course offers is really quite wide ranging. So I think for me, one of the biggest boons in engaging with the course was kind of just going hell for leather into the weirdest of subjects, like hemp as a transition crop, or the role that farming sector is playing. And it's interesting because it gives you a foundational knowledge that gives you a little bit more confidence maybe to enter topics that are key within the climate conversation that otherwise you might sort of hold back on, because sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming to step into those new areas. So yeah, I would say kind of follow your curiosity and really go for it.
Wow, thank you very much for this this piece of advice. Building on what you said when muted there. So it's really important to kind of follow that and have that drive. And I mean, as we step into kind of entrepreneurship, to grasp that and to make it central to it. Katerina, can I ask you to kind of build on that a little bit? So that's, you know, sort of top tip for those of us stepping into entrepreneurship. Can you tell us a little bit about how people can take that from this course, how they can kind of grab some of that motivation from it, maybe from your own experience or just from how you feel it might go forward?
I think the group work was brilliant because we were so motivated. We worked so well with each other. So building on the momentum from each other. But then I suppose there's so much from what Maeve was saying there. There are so many subjects and areas, like talking about concrete and learning about concrete, Quentin. That was so new for me. And I suppose that the real focus is to bring it back to whatever business you're in. It's brilliant to be so sort of engulfed in all these new areas, but bring it back to where you want to be. And that's what we did in the third module. And that for me it was great to finally focus down with all the knowledge that we had, and then bed into what I knew, what I wanted to expand on, and look at it with fresh eyes, and look at it with eyes of people in my groups. Like Shanna, we had there were 2 groups that I was engaged with, and we kept in touch, but I also bounced off them for ideas, and it was really helpful, because sometimes you feel like you're in a vacuum, and sometimes you feel that, well, this is really new and nobody really gets it, but people do get it. People are full of common sense if you can explain it to them. And that brings me back to communications, which is central to all this. If you can communicate to your group what you are trying to express, or whatever business you're trying to set up, or what your idea is, then that's half the battle. And that for me was huge. By the end, I was able to clarify. I hadn't looked at things, I think, clearly enough. There is an issue with climate communications, and I think it's something that I started off with that knowledge, but by the end of it, we were all communicating so well because we were talking so much. We were on Blackboard. So I suppose you learn from each other, but take that learning, the last module, settle down and focus on what your business idea is.
Can I ask you sort of a direct follow-on question of that, in terms of, if you feel that it helps you kind of clarify some of that communication for yourself, when you're meeting different attitudes from the public around climate change and you're kind of drawing people in, have you found that those attitudes now kind of react differently to the way you're putting things forward? Have you reframed to have different dialogue with people?
I think there's been, the levels of climate anxiety have gone through the roof even since we did the course. Since the climate bill was enacted into law, there has been a huge change in public perception. So people now want to know, which is brilliant. They want to know what they can do. What can we show them? How we can show them to engage positively. So it's much easier than it was, but I think it's just that we were ahead of our time, and now we are of our time. So it's a big relief, actually. So it's an easier atmosphere to be working in than maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, the opportunity is more tangible now than it used to be. Yeah.
Thanks for mentioning the Climate Action Bill. We've had a new bill just signed recently, which is the Circular Economy Bill. So it'll be very interesting to see what difference this makes moving forward. And I'm pleased to say that circular economy is going to feature very highly and prominently within the course this year. Shanna, may I go to you again for perhaps a final question? What advice, if any, would you have to someone who might be listening to this and thinking about applying and is, really kind of on the fence about will I do it? Can I manage the commitments? What difference will it make to me in the future? Any of those kind of uncertainties. Is there anything you could speak to?
Yeah, I think the course is just so interesting. So you're eager to log on or to meet up every evening, and there's great truth to that. it was a very active course to participate in. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, 100%. I think that if climate resonates with you and it's something that you're thinking about, but you're not sure of what your reference point is in your day-to-day life or your work life, you will find a point of reference, and it will make you think about that different things in different ways completely, whatever your background or your field, be it business or motherhood or the creative industry. There will be a reference point through this course, and it might shoot you off somewhere completely different, or it may just allow you to see what you're doing in a new way. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks. Maeve, do you have anything that you might like to add to that?
Oh, just that I'm jealous. Yeah. I think we got an opportunity to meet up as a class kind of after the fact, and I would really encourage you guys to just enjoy meeting each other in real life, because those moments of kind of unexpected cross-pollination are really, really incredible for seeding ideas and getting feedback, like Katrina's saying as well. So yeah, I would just really encourage you to apply and see where it takes you.
Super.
Well, Katerina, we have to check on that.
Don't think twice, just do it. You've got the added bonus of the circular economy this year, which will be so interesting. Go for it.
Thank you. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a whole host of opportunities for this cross-pollination and being able to grab this going forward, because you will have chances to be in person, and they're not so many that it's overwhelming. As Quentin was saying earlier, it's sort of 7 throughout the whole thing. But yeah, those really allow you to just have those organic interactions, but also throughout the program, whilst we're doing the online learning and the blended learning, we'll be taking opportunities to put you into different discussion groups, to move you around. And this group that we have here in front of us still had a lot of that opportunity in the online environment. So it really is a very interactive and hands-on course. I'm glad to see a little bit of nodding as I'm saying this, like yes, we did. So yeah, really nice way of working. It's practical. It's not just about climate information that you then don't know how to apply. It's about really tangible information for entrepreneurs, for people who want to make change.
And reading some of the questions popping up, I can see questions about science and assignments or exams and this kind of thing. A key aspect of the course is that it's very multidisciplinary. It's a postgraduate certificate. So yes, prior knowledge is needed, but really it's from all sectors and all disciplines and walks of life. And this is something we're very keen to foster, is this diversity of students and diversity of people working in teams, because really climate change is something that's very systemic, and it's not going to be solved with just one solution. So we need, different actors, different sectors, different thinkers. So regardless of your background, we encourage you to apply, and keep in mind that the course is part-time and it's designed to fit around other commitments. So we had great class last time around, and everybody went through the class and everybody passed. And yes, there can be anxiety with, you think, oh, is there going to be an exam? There are assignments, some of them are group assignments. They are actually enjoyable. Of course, there can be pressure from time to time coming up to deadlines, and some of the assignments are also, singular assignments. So
there's an element of choice in there as well, to kind of draw in on the components that you're finding the most interesting. So if you are a bit more science-based on something, you can delve into that component of it a little bit more or a little bit less. So think of the inputs that we're giving as sort of inspirations to help you draw out where your focus area lies. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's all good. So, Jane, how are we doing for time?
Hi guys, yeah, we're good for time. time, and we have been answering most of the questions that have coming in on the chat. I think we covered off most. There was one or two there that I wasn't 100% sure of. I'm just going to go back and see if we answered them. So yeah, all about like how are students assessed. So that really is continuously being assessed through practical group work and individual assignments, but no exams. Isn't that correct, guys?
That's correct.
Yeah, great stuff. Then what kind of backgrounds? Yeah, I think you covered that. The backgrounds of the kind of previous students on the course, where they come from, or
just very far ranging. So you have a flavor here on the panel this evening. If I can add to that, agriculture, farming co-ops, agroforestry, business, IDA. I think you could pick any sector. I think we had very good representation from different sectors, different interests and backgrounds. And really this is key because, climate change, it cuts across all parts of society, and every sector has a climate impact. So, we really need this diversity in applicants and students and people working together to formulate these systemic solutions to climate change.
Yeah. And you become a resource for one another as well. The more diverse that group is, it's not just bringing that thinking, but really enabling you to create a resourceful network that steps out. So yeah, we really want people to come in from all walks of life.
There's another question here asking, I'd like to know if venture capitalists are also involved at some point, and if so, are there any stories about enterprises that have been created by students that had that type of funding? So I guess the first thing is that this is only the second time this course is run, but there are opportunities within Tangent as a whole. If people have an idea, we have Launchbox where all Trinity students can go into Launchbox with an idea. We have people like our student entrepreneurship manager, Joe Lanzalotta. He works with people with an idea that's a concept from the stage of written on a post-it to all the way to having a business case planned. So certainly look into that more if you do get on the course, but there's always opportunities to go a little bit further, even if it's not within this course, outside in the wider Trinity sphere. I think there's a couple more at the end. Can you talk a little about who Tangent is and who will be the course leaders and contributors? So Hugh, that's really Quentin and Eleanor here in front of us, and Tangent are the Innovation Academy of Trinity College. So all our courses are really about design thinking, creative thinking, entrepreneurship, collaboration, creative collaboration, bringing people together with their own unique skill sets from different backgrounds, because we can see that when people come together, it's that peer-to-peer learning that's really valuable, as well as the great staff and support that we have from Trinity itself and Tangent.
That's great. Thanks for that, Jane. Something that I find particularly interesting is the caliber of guest speakers that the course attracts. So while Quentin and Eleanor will be leading out on the course and they'll be the permanent fixtures, if you like, there is a really superb pedigree, I suppose, of guest speakers. Quentin, could you speak a little bit around who has featured in the past intake?
Yes, sure. And on any of our panelists which wish to highlight anything as well, feel free. I think for me last year, having Mary Robinson contribute to the course was amazing, and talking about climate action and effective communication for climate action, really, and bringing her perspective to that. Obviously, she's a world-known figure, and her being able to contribute some of her time to the course was really incredible. And for me, that was definitely a highlight. But we had invited speakers from lots of different sectors. Edward Cameron last year came to speak to us, talking about climate finance and corporate climate responsibilities. But really, that's just like two of many, many others. And maybe others here might like to pick out some that really, fore of your mind and stick out for you.
We had a lecturer, I've forgotten his name, but he was working for the city in Edinburgh, I think. And he shared some really incredible examples of progress within the sort of various stratas of the political and public systems in Scotland. And one of the things I think in general that the course offered me personally was a perspective which is solution focused. And I found that really inspiring, and having people like him come in and go into the minutia of, and this is how it works, and this is, you know, again, where the economy thrives when you invest in this way, and kind of just being able to see things from beginning to end like that was really, really great.
That was Jamie Brogan from Edinburgh Climate Change Institute.
Yes, apologies.
Yes.
Completely forgot it.
Yeah, amazing story. He had success stories, and that's great to be able to hear these success stories and best practice from other areas, and then being able to, you know, adapt these to local needs. I think is a key point as well about the variety of invited contributors.
There's another question that's come through. So people might think, oh, I'm not sure if this course is for me, because what I think I'm entrepreneurial, I don't have an idea to hand that has to be fostered and developed. So what might you say to that potential applicant, Quentin?
What was the first part of that question?
That's a good question. At this late hour,
okay.
Yeah, so you might say have an interest in climate entrepreneurship, but you're not coming to the table. You're not coming to the course with an idea, and you might be intimidated at the prospect of coursework to develop said idea if you don't yet have one. So, what might you say to that potentially?
Well, it's different things for different people. Like it's not a one size fits all, and it is something that's adaptable, as Eleanor said. There are many opportunities to pick and choose. You know, something particularly with the group work that you focus on a topic that really motivates and interests you. So some people will come to the course, they may already have their own startups. They may be more of an entrepreneurial mindset, so working to change within large organizations. They may have an idea or they may not. And really we saw this the first time around. This is only the second time the course is run, but judging from the first time around, really we had like a full spectrum of people coming with fully developed ideas to people who were just curious to know more about entrepreneurship with a climate lens and everything in between. So I'd say, you know, don't be shy about making an application. If you don't have an idea, that's absolutely fine. If you do have an idea and you want, you know, feedback from your peers and from expert contributors, then that's great too.
We see as well that ideas. Oh, sorry, Shanna, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that. I started the course with no specific business idea in mind. And throughout the sort of momentum of the course, I developed a business and a product. And I didn't think I was going to do that. I didn't necessarily engage with the course to do that. So that came for me as part of the course. And now is in further development by investors and Enterprise Ireland, and the programs that come afterwards or within Tangent that kind of take your hand into the next step. That does happen and it's out there. So yeah, that was my experience with it.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah, we do find that people find inspiration on the course to develop change or create ideas in the first place. I saw a question pop in there as well. You know, how are different enterprises coming out of this, and different formulations of enterprise as well. So yes, you know, it's possible to talk about them in terms of profit, non-profit, charitable organization. There's many different ways that we can kind of explore what something could be, and what's the best profile for the idea that you're trying to turn into a business, and where might that sit and how might it work. And also, just, I know we're coming to the end, but just to toot our own horns a little bit. So with Quentin and myself, Quentin works really in the geosciences side. His climate knowledge is fantastic and second to none. So kind of guiding you through that space of what climate change is, what the impacts are, what's going on in this. And then his network of change makers within that is really, really brilliant. And then from my side, I'm stepping in with this innovation side, holding you in terms of how you're making some of those decisions and how you're walking through that journey. And I'm linked in here to Tangent. Of course, they've already said through Jane, they can bring in a lot of people as well within this ecosystem that's sitting here. But then in the wider ecosystem that we're also working in, so I'm working with a lot of different entrepreneurs and a lot of different entrepreneur programs where, you know, we're tapping into to financiers, VCs, different types of people can come in and speak to you around this. So it really is a rich network that you're coming into, to kind of hold you from both the climate and entrepreneurship side and guide you through this. And then with all those fantastic extra speakers coming in, and even our alumni who are here as kind of part of that wider network too.
Thanks, Eleanor. I just had an exclusive message from a one Brendan Fay who previously studied on the course, and he cited Positive Carbon as really, really useful as well in terms of a company that could share their journey with the group.
Yes, thanks, Brendan, for mentioning that. Nice to see you here. Positive Carbon were one of several, early stage startups we invited, excuse me, as course contributors. And it's always very interesting to hear the different kinds of journeys that startups have, because they're not all the same. And Positive Carbon are working to combat food waste, particularly from catering industries. So there was definitely a kind of an innovation and technology side to that, but also combating food waste, because we know around 1/3 of all food produced on the planet is actually going to waste, which is incredible when you think about the resources, the land, the energy, the water that's used. So anything which can really lower the amount of food that's going to waste is definitely a good thing. Anything else popped up in the Q&A or the chat there that we haven't addressed so far?
Somebody did query the time required in terms of coursework and the commitment expected. It is a level 9 certificate from Ireland's leading university. It is an accredited qualification, so there is work involved. Again, Quentin, you might be able to speak a little bit around.
Or maybe our panelists here are in the best position.
Well, yeah,
they've
apologies,
been on the receiving end of
yes,
juggling careers and family and part-time course. So maybe you'd like to share your experiences of the workload and assignments.
I would say the group work really shared the load, because people tended to play to their strengths. And that I found that the first 2 modules were group work, and it worked really, really well. When it came to working on my own in the 3rd module, I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I could have done it half the time if I had more people working with me. So there was a lot of learning in that. Group work makes it a lot easier, and it's very doable.
Maeve, Shanna, anything to add there?
Yeah, I would echo that. I think, the 1 night a week kind of teaching engagement, and then agreed upon commitment for the rest of the week with your group makes it a kind of very democratized process. And I think it was one of the lovely things that made it very inclusive, actually. And I'm based out west as well, so I would sort of feel the same as Katrina in terms of having access to the course. But I think, for people who are juggling a lot, it makes it possible to engage, and that enhances the diversity of the group. And I think that helps with everything, really.
Yeah. And just to clarify, we have two evenings per week, generally speaking, apart from our in-person sessions, which is like a double session on Saturdays. And that's equivalent to the first and last session of each of the 3 modules. So we have 3 by 10 CTS modules. Great.
Excellent.
Jane, Hazel, anything else there to address?
Yeah, so just to, we have another question. Thank you, Mark. Can the course provide any insights on environmental impact in the legal profession, and what contributions can be made in this sector, a traditionally paper-based profession? Might you have a comment on that?
Interesting one. I don't think we had anyone from a legal background as students on the course last year. We did have a contributor with a legal background who was talking mainly from a finance perspective, but sometimes mentioned the legal. It is an interesting one. Thanks, Mark, for that. Policy is very important, obviously. We have different approaches and styles for change making. And certainly with the policy instruments, having a top-down approach is very necessary. And we've mentioned, the Climate Action Bill and Circular Economy Bill. But also really what we try and foster within this course is having a dual system where we've got from a ground up. And it's great when you have intersections of both of these approaches. I think they can be super effective, but really what we hear from people is that one doesn't work without the other, that you need to have this kind of cooperative approach of the two. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, maybe something to add to it is just that the thinking tools that we're giving you during this course are entrepreneurially applicable to lots of different sectors. So if you're coming from the legal sector, this course can be applied as a way of learning those tools to make and embed change, how to go through the thinking. And then absolutely it can be applied within your own sector. And again, kind of drawing back to the, sort of hotbed that you're in when you're in Trinity, you're sort of, as a student here, able to tap into that. So there's no reason why you can't kind of access or contact some of the professors who might be more in that space if you also wanted to reach out during it. So there is time to kind of widen the stakeholder network that you're talking to as well. Yeah, absolutely. It's applicable to many different spaces, and should be. Legal needs to come along with us too.
Excellent. Okay, and just one final query I see coming in there. Jane, you might answer it in the chat. It's regarding someone who does not have a third level education. And they're just querying whether they might be eligible to apply, and they certainly are eligible to apply, and they will be reviewed using our recognition of prior learning policy. So details of that can be found on our course page also. So thank you everyone for joining. Just to reiterate that the course is currently open for applications, and it's closing on the 16th of August. Places are offered on a rolling basis, so early application is advised. You may hear if you've been accepted onto the course within a week of applying, and the course may close in advance of that closing date, just in light of that kind of application model. So it is free of charge for unemployed eligible candidates, thanks to Springboard Plus funding, and then eligible candidates who are in employment can receive 90% funding for the course. So a bargain for a level 9 qualification from Ireland's leading university at €375. And keep an eye out in your inbox. Post-event, you'll receive an email with helpful links on how to apply, and also a date for your diary. We're hoping to host an event here in Tangent HQ, so you can come in and check out our impressive space on the 9th of August. And that will be from 6:30 to 7:30. So keep an eye on our events page, our social channels, and your inbox, and you'll receive details of that very soon. But I'd like to say thank you to our panel, Maeve, Katrina, Shanna, and Jane, and of course Quentin and Eleanor for joining us this evening. And if anyone has any follow-up questions at all on how to apply or anything discussed, please do send them to springboard@tcd.ie. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thanks also to the graduates of the course who joined us in the audience. It's really great to see you here, and thanks